Here we go. Welcome. Good evening, everybody. We are in Vermont on Abenaki land, and we've got a small group of folks here who have been a part of EmpowR Transformation Circles, and just want to extend gratitude here to all of you for showing up tonight, for showing up in different times and spaces with the work that we do with EmpowR. EmpowR is a incubation space for building cultural conditions of belonging and collective liberation. And we do our work in a variety of different ways, including holding circles and spaces where people are navigating shifts in our behaviors and how we ripple them into the world so that we can create ripples and be the microcosm and the macrocosm of the just and liberated worlds that we long for. And thank you all again for being here. And thank you to the Circle Way for supporting some of EmpowR's work. The Circle Way is a global justice and equity facilitation process and community. And so this recording is being offered back to the Circle Way for shared learning in reciprocity for the Circle Way supporting some of the programs that we've been developing here with EmpowR. With that, we're going to do 5 different prompts tonight. And I wanted to go over the agreements, looking at all the different things here. So I'm just going to pop in a shortened version of the agreements. You all, I believe, received the agreements, and they're the same ones that we've used at different events before. Yes. So EmpowR works with a set of agreements that community created over the past couple of years, and we use those in all of the spaces that we hold and the ways that we engage with one another. And this is a shortened version that's coming up in the chat. So just to touch on these, listening from your heart. I'm just going to lift up a couple of things here with this circle tonight, sharing from your heart. A big part of that is using I statements. So this is a reflection circle on some different experiences that you've had. So definitely be really mindful about using I statements. So you're speaking from your direct lived experience, and we're not speaking like to the collective we here. We're really speaking like, oh, this was my experience and this is my reflection. So really be mindful of the I statements. And I'm going to pop that out. Of course, I had one other note on that. Oh, yes. And being mindful of the pause. A big part of the Circle Way is working with the pause. So I'm going to invite pausing between our shares so we can collect our breath. So we're not just jumping right into the next person's share. So really just that invitation to hold that pause. We're all going through and moving through a lot right now. We're recording this at the time when there is a new war that's very heavy, I think, on a lot of people's hearts. So we're kind of entering this space knowing that is in the background at this time between 2 eclipses in October of 2023. And so really inviting in that pause so we don't feel like we have to jumble into something, and we can just kind of sit and be like, oh yeah, right, I'm present in this space and time. I'm going to hold that before I come to an answer. So we've got five prompts tonight. And the ask is that a different person start each prompt with your talking stick. So everyone wants to just show their talking pieces. Oh, cat talking piece. Yep, that's a good one. So when you're ready to respond to the prompt, you just kind of pick up the talking piece. And again, there's 5 prompts, so everybody having a chance to go first, so that the same person isn't always starting, and we're just mixing up the order. And I'm not going to self-select. I'm going to allow that to come from the group. And so with that, we are ready for our first prompt. And this is, and I will put this in the chat as well, your name, your pronouns if you want to share them, where you are calling in from, I have to like make the screen bigger and smaller to do things here. It how you're arriving. So the how you're arriving is really, I should have taken that part out. It's if today were a falling leaf, what would you be and why? So you're describing how you're arriving in, if today was a falling leaf, what would you be and why? So before the first person jumps in to answer, let's not jump, and let's just sit with that, ground into this present space and time. Feel your feet on the floor, feel your body in the chair that you're sitting in. Oh, take a breath. Maybe a collective breath, breathing out and then breathing in. Oh. And keeping awareness kind of here in this space. We're not dropping into a deep meditation. So just keeping our awareness, maybe taking a look at who's on the screen, who's here. Some of you may have met before, and I think several of you have not. And just orienting to your space. Just taking a look around so that we're really just present in this moment in time. You all look really present, but I don't want to make an assumption. So. And I am not one of the 5 starting the circles, although I will participate. So after a couple more breaths, whoever wants to start with this round is welcome to pick up their talking piece and unmute and go ahead.
Hello, my name is Jared. I am calling from Chicopee, Massachusetts. Falling leaf. So I feel like I'd be drifting gently and trying to go with the flow, but I'm having trouble. I feel like I want to go in a specific direction, but the wind keeps pulling me in different directions as I fall. I'm being constantly reminded that it's okay to just let go of some of those things and just go with the flow, because I'm going to land eventually and I'm going to be safe when I get there. So that is how I'm coming in.
Aaron.
Hello, I'm Eric, and I'm currently in West Glover, Vermont. And as a leaf, I'm one that's sort of already hit the deck, and it's cold and wet, and you try to sweep the leaf off the deck, and it's perfectly stuck on the, flattened on there and wet, and you can't get it off the deck. You have to kind of actually reach down and take it and gently pick it up, or you could just leave it on the deck. So all those things. Um, but yeah, just trying to adjust to the shifting seasons, the wet and the dark and the cold and I mean, I guess wet has been all the seasons so far, but just slow and steady. Thanks.
Thanks, Eric.
I'm Becky. I'm in Montpelier right now. I love this question. I feel and I saw a leaf today and I just felt with it for a while, and it was asymmetrical and coming down in the middle of a meadow that, it wasn't obvious what tree it came from. And perspective just keeps changing. Every circle I take, I just see it all very differently.
Thanks, Becky.
Everyone. I'm Madeline. Pronouns are she, her. I am calling in from Richmond, Vermont. And if I were a falling leaf, I think it would be bright orange and spinning really, really, really fast. Because I am feeling just like I have a million things to do. And I'm trying to rush into landing. So I can feel a little bit more grounded, and I have to remember that it's just going to take some time, and it will probably take the whole Zoom, and that is okay.
Thanks, Madeline.
I'm Mitch, coming in from Plainfield at the sanctuary. I have not fallen yet. I was driving around today and on my way to work, noticing this beautiful maple on East Hill, which is this awesome road that goes down to the village down in Plainfield, and realizing that there were a lot of still beautiful, bountiful green leaves, and kind of thought about that this morning. Actually, this prompt is really fitting because like it represents an aspect where I'm not ready to fall yet and like lean into that winter. And I feel like there's a lot still to move through and to vibe with before the daylight changes again and go into daylight savings time and all this kind of stuff. So I'm waiting to fall. I'm still in the tree.
Thanks, Mitch. I think I am a bright yellow leaf, and I've fallen, but it's like it's stopping. Like it's like this slow descent, like it stops and hangs out here, and then like this wind like is like, oh yeah, now you're gonna hang out here. And I don't think I've gotten to the ground yet. Yeah, I think I'm like hanging out in some different spots and checking out some different perspectives and letting go in each spot. And not feeling urgency about falling. I do have to say I'm feeling in a slow flow, which feels really good and also kind of scary. Thanks, everyone. So just having a little centering moment. Another good breath in, another just shake it out, let that leaf bring in some leaf medicine. So our first of kind of 3 juicy rounds. I am going to time these so that we can get through these questions. So these are going to be 2-minute shares. And again, a different person starting in a different order, just kind of bouncing in. And so this is and actually, before I read the prompt, I mean, you could read it for context for folks who are watching this when they're watching it. So Mitch is my partner, and we live in Plainfield. Right, I didn't even introduce myself. I'm Ray. I use she and he pronouns. I live in Plainfield at Grandmother Cherry Sanctuary with Mitch, and Mitch and I both were facilitating different circles this summer. Mitch was doing a men's community evolution circle and has facilitated some other men's consciousness types of circles, and I've been facilitating some white women accountability circles, and we've also done a couple of mixed group just kind of community gatherings on the land. So just to give some context for who we are. And the other folks in this call have attended different circles. So what is something you harvested from an EmpowR Transformation Circle this summer, spring or summer, that you are continuing to work with? So we'll take a minute to be able to sit with that question, feel into it before the first person comes in with their talking piece. What is something you harvested from an EmpowR Transformation Circle this season that you are continuing to work with? I'm going to do
Do I need to introduce myself every time?
No, I just was going to tell you I'm going to do the timer.
Okay. What is the time?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. That's a long time. I'm a quick talker. And that's what I'm leaning into is I loved, for me, when you guided us to not quickly jump into responding and kind of that validating role that we can do quickly with each other, needing to respond right after someone speaks. That's certainly been something for me to explore. And I had experienced it growing up and being with, tribal people that value that space of quietness, but I've just lost touch with it. And I appreciate that. And that's much quicker than 2 minutes.
Thanks, Becky.
I can go. I, as the facilitator of, the circles in the past couple years, and especially this past season, I've always come to it with a little bit of nerves, and wanting to show up in a really, really awesome space to be able to hold a space. And one of the things that I have really come to really know and understand and trust is that no matter if it's one person or two or three or four or five or six, however many people are there, the people that show up really do, I think, show up with trust and understanding in the process. And I have come away, especially after this season, with the ability to trust in the people that are coming and to trust that they are there for the reasons they need to be there. And coming out with this sense of trust in myself, and also trust in the human beings that are showing up in the space, and trusting the process and of in itself. And that is a really big, beautiful blessing and fuel to keep going in the process. This trust.
Thank you, Mitch. I'm going to actually pop in and do a share. Partly because I would also be remiss if I didn't just call in a little language piece with Becky. When you said tribal peoples, I'm guessing that are you referring to indigenous people? Oops.
A few different experiences with my family in Hawaii and Alaska, and
Okay. Thank you so much for clarifying that. I was kind of feeling, oh, part of my role in facilitating is like clarifying language pieces. And yeah, I think that's part of the work. I got to just do it right now. Thank you for talking about a little bit about your ancestry and helping clarify that language, which can raise, things for people if they're not sure what that's in reference to. And I think that's something that I have been working on myself in facilitating the circles is, I'm participating, and then I also am holding the space for like that, leaning into these different learning edges around language, around different call-ins, and how to do that in a way that's holding both empathy and accountability. And that is a constant learning edge for me. And these circles have definitely provided an opportunity to do more of that, including right now. And thanks for being here for all of that. Complete.
So my learning experience from the circles that I've been in with this community, the things that I continue to work through, actually also about the coming up with a response for every talking point. It was like it when I was younger, but it's really my corporate work that has driven that into me, that there has to be a solution for everything. Anytime somebody says something, they're looking for a solution to a problem, which is fine when I'm at work, but it bleeds into my personal life. Where anytime anybody, I mean, friend, family, doesn't matter, anytime we have a conversation, if there's even a hint, or I perceive that there's a hint that they need help, or they're looking for an answer, I'm already forming a response before they even get to the end of their first sentence, which one takes away. I mean, I'm not grounding myself in the moment, which is also part of that active listening, that receiving part, which is disrespectful to them, and I'm also not really. Yeah, I'm not really just hearing the whole thing like I need to. And being in circles helped me realize that more. And as we do these exercises in the circles and community Zoom, it's been nice to continue to reinforce that for myself. I think it's improved my relations, professionally and personally, to have that, I don't want to say skill, but to have that awareness of these things. So that's what I've harvested and continue to work through.
Thank you, Jared.
Think a big thing, one is my ability to pause. I work with a lot of young people, and they are people who trust me, and they come to me, and they often want to talk about stuff that's going on for them. And there have been a few key moments where I've realized I think I'm about to respond very, very quickly to something a kid has shared. And then I've been able to be like, to stop myself before I speak, and pause and say, "Oh, tell me more about that," instead of jumping in to give a solution, because that is what I think a teacher should do. So that has been really positive. And I also have been unlearning so much shame and guilt, like just being able to show myself compassion when I do, you know, start to think about like, oh, there's got to be one right way, or when I think that I myself specifically haven't said the exact right thing or had the right solution or anything like that. Yeah, participating in circles has really helped me to get to the root of why I have that urge, and to instead show myself a lot of love and compassion and just let myself be a person. Um, yeah.
Thank you, Madeline.
That leaves me, I think. I through all kinds of, like a thread through all my participation at the EmpowR Sanctuary and like individual with Ray, which isn't necessarily pertinent directly to this conversation, or men's circle, or some of the other special, like the summer solstice. It's that sort of, finding my voice, but and finding that there are many different voices that I can use. And, sometimes things come out in a nervous energy, or I'm very sensitive, definitely, to the energy of other people in the group, whether it's real or imagined. It's something I pay attention to, but also, like I've had a moment, sometimes the sort of alchemy or whatever of the group energy just it is such a way that I got the one circle. I was singing songs to like a group of people, many of whom were strangers, and sort of just being um, feeling totally comfortable with that, which would be not a usual thing for my um, kind of shyness. But yeah, sharing from the heart as opposed to also sharing from the intellect, which is, I think this probably sounds like a pretty common problem in or challenge in culture, or sort of modern Western whoever. And so that's something I continue to try to nurture on different levels. And yeah, having controlled like a circle practice, or that's literally what you're practicing, is always helpful, because it's not always easy to remember or like regain your presence in the moment and all the random daily interactions that you have. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Eric. All right. Before our next question, some movement, some stretching, some breathing, some shaking. Not that we're having a super intense conversation, but it could be bringing up different things. And so a lot of what we use at EmpowR is we work with somatic abolitionist skills from Resma Medicam, and we're always bringing in, those settling our bodies in community, whether it be on a Zoom or whether it be in person. Maybe after the next one we can hum. All right. Next question. You're all doing great. Thank you so much. really, really grateful for your insights here. What parts of being in circle resonate most with you? So this is kind of getting more into the process. So what parts resonate most with you? And is there anything about circle you have brought to other areas of your life? So again, it's okay if you speak to content, but some of this is a little bit around like getting into kind of a process type of question. So what parts of being in circle resonate with you? Is there anything about circle that you have brought to other areas in your life, like the practice or the practices that come out of circle? I'm just taking a moment again for everyone to be able to just sit with that question before the first person who hasn't gone yet steps us off.
I can go. I'm feeling the call this time. Um, another thing that resonates with me is that, um, that feeling of once like we're all kind of into it and we've grounded a little bit, and maybe it's like we've taken a walk or we've sat by a tree or we've done something and we come into the circle and agreements are kind of gone through, and that first prompt is given, what we're doing, and that one person who feels called to speak out and to share the story and to show up in themselves um, often models that sense of like safety in the process. And so that is something that really resonates with me, is that, that container that can be there and the safety, um, especially in a men's circle, in a men's group where sharing vulnerable feelings often sometimes can be very, very hard. That like springboard that happens is really inspiring. Um, so that's one thing that really resonates with me, is that people can feel like really held and want to can see somebody else's vulnerability and can use that to move through their own experience in the circle. And I think outside of that, like going into practice in life, it's that, we've talked about it so far this evening, that like the idea of the pause and like really recognizing with that within myself in a conversation with a friend, a colleague, whatever it may be, where someone asks a question or needs to say something and be witnessed, and to really listen and to be with that and that pause and the power that can be in that pause. And so that's a thing that I've really taken out of this experience and bringing out into my own other life and real world experience.
Yeah, so Mitch's speak kind of helped prompt me, I think, especially the last thing you said about the other life. I I think something that being in circle has helped me to bring back into the rest of life is that knowledge of vulnerability, and that for a long time I've separated, the various parts of my life into sections, right? There's the corporate me, there's the me that's at home, there's the me when I'm in circle. All of those people are me. Um, and it's been helpful for me to be vulnerable in those circles, to witness others' vulnerability, and to see that in other people helps me to have more empathy on a day-to-day basis. I mean, I'm generally pretty empathic anyway, but sometimes circumstance can kind of blind you to those things. It's helped me to have more empathy for people in general, day to day, especially those going through struggles or those that slight me in some way that previously I may have taken personally, but I can see it easier now that it's, that there's something else. Usually it's, which sometimes it's me, but it's usually not me. It's something else. And I think just seeing that every time I'm in circle, it's a great experience. Both to be able to be heard, but also to hear. Um, and yeah, just kind of extending that, realize that vulnerable me and that vulnerable person, a lot of people aren't comfortable showing that, in general, which again, in public with, strangers say it's probably less, but I've noticed, I think, more of an opening of myself in my friend circles since I've been doing this work to be more open to sharing. Things that I previously might have been difficult for me to talk about. So yeah, yeah.
Hi. I think there's something, I mean, there's a lot of things, and I participate in different circles, but, and a common thing, I think, something that's like a new resonance, I guess. I've had a pretty lifelong history of being pretty cynical or like a lot of devil's advocacy and just like poking at things and because I never felt this sort of sense of faith or belief in um, some of the wider beings and things. And this is all to say something, a kind of a new thing, a new aspect to this faith that I discover or am discovering or am nurturing is just people showing up, and and there's a view of the world that is presented in a lot of spheres that can really feed into your cynicism and sort of lack of compassion for human beings in general, and just wondering, why, and showing up to these kinds of circles, and just seeing other people showing up and just trying, whatever flawed ways that we do, um, but genuinely searching and reaching out brings some hope for, and I see this other part of humanity and I know it's all there under this undercurrent, and then it spreads wide and it ripples out from individuals who learn things in these circles. And I see the other, there's kind of like the panicked cascade of calamity and devastation that we can be worried about all the time. But there's also this cascade underneath, and in other ways that it's just less visible until you really start to fall into them yourselves, of this cascade of hope and compassion, and people reaching out. So may the best man win, I guess. The best cascade, or if that's even a.
And just make note when you hear the chime, that's the invitation to kind of wrap up that thought in that sentence. I don't want to go over and we started a few minutes late. Do folks have a couple more minutes so we can finish this up, or does anyone have a hard stop right at 8? Okay.
I didn't actually hear a chime, but sorry if I went over.
Didn't hear it? Are people
No.
hearing the chime? Let's see. I can't make it louder. Let's see. Oh, no, I set it for 2 minutes. Sorry.
Nope, silence.
You're not hearing that?
No.
Mm.
Whoa. All right. I'll ding it and maybe what I'll do is instead of the heart, I'll just do the celebration. Yeah, all right, I'll do that. Yeah. Okay. Thanks everyone. Continuing on. I guess I'll pick up the talking piece then because I have a share, right? Yeah, I mean holding these circles for me, and also being in other circles, I think it's so resonant with everything that's been said so far. There's such a deeper listening to what's been being said in the space, to the energy that's presenting in the space, especially in person, especially with the circles outside, with really paying witness to the unseen beings and the beings, the cats and the dogs that come in and out, and the bees. There was like a bee sting once. I mean, all of these different friends and allies, and being able to kind of hold space in a way that I have moved away from my old world order of like, here's the set agenda and all the times, although I am kind of doing that for this because I want to have some specific thread points to report back. But often how I flow is in such a place of emergence and really just fully trusting and listening to what's happening around me and shifting things and prompts based on kind of how the conversations are flowing, and really trusting and being in that space feels so generative. And then when I go back into kind of some other real world spaces, I'm trying to bring those elements more in. It's challenging, but I also can trust that it can be done because I see it happen when we're in circle. So I think that's my share for this round.
Yes, I would definitely say the humanity part of it is the resonance, and the role that you guys play in allowing that space for people and all that work you do. And what really hits me is how when you have the space, you leave the space without too much directive, how much needs are met. Like I noticed so many times looking around the circle, you know, this human was struggling or challenged by a specific thing in their life. And another human would have something, or non-human would have something that would just help in that exploration, whether it was a different perspective or, I've got to say, the dog was a great, great exploration for me in one of the circles. And yeah, and so that just really compounds on a lot of practice I've been doing for just leaving empty space, for all that magic to happen, and bringing into other areas of my life. I've never been a stranger to it, but I loved the direction of speaking to the trees and letting them witness. So just that's really strengthened in my life since experiencing that with you in circle. That's it.
So when it comes to circle and the process, I think that what has always really struck me is that I'm very much like a dialogue person. I do my best thinking through talking it out in conversation. And circle forces me to think differently because I am not in dialogue. And sometimes I worry that if I am going with the circle process, I may not get an answer, right? If I'm going and feeling into a very specific need or worry or just something I've been trying to think about. And but every time, even though no one is speaking to it directly, I usually get the message I need. Um, and yeah, that is definitely something that's resonated, and it's allowed me, I think, in terms of bringing that to other areas of my life, it's allowed me to just trust in a process when I'm with a group of people just a little bit more, and to have some faith that like things will come together and we'll get what we need. And of course, I have to mention, I don't know if the kitchen witch counted as a circle, but I think we had some circle elements. So watching my daughter like get her whole life and just be having a great time with plants and communing with nature and animals and kids and witches is just amazing. And that has brought so many wonderful new dimensions into our house. So if that counts as a circle, then that's brought a lot into my life too. Yeah.
All right, we have our last juicy prompt and then kind of a closing prompt. So I tweaked this a little bit. Oh, pause in between. Look at me. Yeah, so in the body. Maybe this is a chance to rock a little bit. Put your hands on your body if you're feeling sensation anywhere, just bringing attention and love and care to that. And do we feel up for a hum? Maybe when Madeline returns from a movement.
Back at home.
So yeah, if folks want to unmute, so we can have a collective hum. So getting all of the breath out. Breathing in. And Madeline, I love you have your hand on your heart, maybe an invitation, just a nice heart breath. Heart breath for ourselves and heart breath for humanity, which needs it so bad. And maybe another hum of just sending out heart breath for humanity on a hum feels good. So getting that out, breathing in. Thank you for being a part of Ripples, sending ripples. All right, so this last question is there something you have been sitting with in regards to the circle topic that is a learning edge for you? So for the white identifying women, that would be the white accountability circle and the themes around that topic. And for the men, even though you've participated kind of in some different circles, this is the broader theme around developing other forms, healthier forms of masculinity. So shifting away from the toxic masculinity pieces into healthier forms of masculinity. I think the circle way folks would love to know, because those were the two programs that they were helping to support. Would love to hear some reflection if you have, yeah, like, is there something you sitting with in regards to those two topics? That's a learning edge for you. So maybe something that you're leaning into a little bit more, that you're grappling with.
So thinking of the white women's accountability circle, so much of what is required to like grapple with the emotions of unlearning and really showing up as an anti-racist ally. And I think also just that deeper, like the somatic work and like the ancestral work that comes out of that, like it requires a lot of like shadow stuff. um and being able to like dig into not just like the painful memories of ways that I have messed up and caused harm, or finding some kind of way of like moving through the emotions of the stories that I've helped hold, and also like trying to dig into whatever stuff is lurking, ancestrally. That is something that's like, it's scary. And it's something where I feel like I can always use like more guidance. And it's also, I think, part of why I keep coming back to the circles as often as I can, because it is that space where I can kind of dig into the stuff somatically, um, with support, but without it being a support where like I am asking people to do it for me, or I'm asking people to like help me with it. Right. I'm just going there and trusting. Um, so yeah, bringing that part of circle out of circle is the learning edge and the part that's hard.
All right. Try to watch for your fingers. Sometimes I'm good at being concise, sometimes not. Most times not. There's for me, there in this particular realm, there's I see a challenge for myself in how to. I mean, it's challenging enough to hold my own accountability and kind of like breathe through defensiveness and learning curves and like sometimes responses come up immediately and then I can come back to it and say yes, there's something I need to learn, because we're always thinking doing great. I think I've got it figured out, and then you meet a new challenge that you didn't realize you still had, but then like we're all on kind of different points of our learning curves and how to sit with others who are at different places and like and not and just sort of dissolve judgment or a way to like bring a peaceful ear without or um you know you don't want to like shame anyone or yourself and um I guess how to I'm not sure exactly what I'm trying to say, but how to be with how to hold and or transmit energy somebody's like in a totally different place than like I had some challenges with that, how to at the last men's circle I was attending, and someone was having a lot of difficulty, and then I was having difficulty like sitting with their difficulty, you know. um, and yeah, just how to let that go.
So on the topic of white women accountability and the work we did with looking at how we live in community and relationship with each other, as a step before we can look outside of that and ourselves, has been a challenge, to look at both generations before me, my mother and grandmother, and trying to be present with their journey, and then looking at, my friendships, the community, how we show up for each other, what story we are writing for our children, and how we're helping our children show up for each other, and not hyper focusing on the independence part of helping our children become young adults. That it's okay to reach out to community, that we don't have to be so independent, because that can create all the things. That's what I've been leaning into, is trying to be present with humanity around me and not just my own survival.
So for me, the men's circle for unpacking and observing, other ways around toxic masculinity. I actually think this came up in the very first circle that I attended, which I don't know if I consider it a learning edge, but it's definitely still something that I think about often, and that is like what it means to be a man in this, this society, this world, this time. Um, I've always been, I've struggled throughout my life with, fitting in as a man among other men in my family. My dad was always a, hard work, solution for everything kind of guy, very down to earth farmer. It's totally fine, but that's not me. I'm much more emotionally driven. I'm more likely to give into my emotions, so I was raised, you know, having to hide a lot of those emotions a lot of the time. So, and thankfully it wasn't pushed out of me all the way. In my friend circles and things like that, I was very lucky to have friends where I can show, emotion, other male friends that I can show emotion with. But I think that's been part of my circles, kind of re-examining that, how it brought me to be the person I am today. So not my ancestry like my father and grandfather, though that plays into it, but almost my ancestry of myself, where I was when I was young, and how it's brought me to as I am, and the lessons that I have learned in thinking about these sorts of things and help me, be a better man, be a better community member for all people. So.
Yeah, I feel like I have a lot of learning edges, especially, being the one who like facilitates circles here. Um, there's certainly a lot of like um, kind of confidence I need to lean into going into the circles and the um, kind of like modeling as kind of the vulnerability pieces and like all these kinds of things that I want to bring into the circle, especially with like um, being around a group of men and like all these kinds of different things. And I think that's one edge to it. The main edge that I feel is that um, you know we do the circle, we have this beautiful thing. It's always like there's always some sort of magic that can kind of happen in it, and then like how do I take that experience and sit with that, and then the day or 2 or 3 days after, or however long it takes, and um, remember that. So the edge is how do I remember that in those conversations, and then how do I kind of transmute them into like what I'm doing in my daily life, and um, remembering that we all shared something in that space and we all learned from each other, and to put into practice what I learned from the other human beings in this space. So to the edge is to come back to that remembrance, um, and of that healing and of that magic that is in that time together. And how do we use that? How do we apply that to ourselves and to others? That ripple, if you will.
Yeah, learning edge. I think maybe another way to frame learning edge could be like, what are we leaning into to stretch that discomfort muscle? Maybe another phrasing around that. And I am definitely leaning into how to really be in confidence, um, that the work that I'm doing is needed and is also only one small part of many, many, many efforts to build a just and liberated world. And when it comes to white woman accountability work, like this balance of being in my own energy, to hold space for and invite more white identifying people into the work in a way that is not keeping people out with the kind of the righteousness and the charge that comes around the emotional charge of race, and how to stand in my confidence doing that, especially when there is constriction, finding my own balance and being able to just be in my own strength around a less divisive world is where we can invite people into spaces and find ways to bring people into conversations, like bringing white women or white people into conversations, rather than shutting down those conversations and then keeping people out of the space of building anti-racist, and gender inclusive and non-ableist and all of the other isms culture. And so that's something that is definitely a learning edge for me, is not being swayed by all of the different directions and really trying to be steadfast in the work that I know, that I'm meant to do. So we are definitely over time. I do want to have a closeout question. I don't think I even have to put it into the center, but I failed to ask people what your talking piece was. So we'll do a closeout. Thank you again so much. Thanks to everybody who is listening. Thanks to all of you for showing up and being a part of this journey. And yeah, whoever hasn't started yet, just a quick share of like what your talking piece is, and if there's something that's supporting you this week that you'd like to just offer into the space briefly. Maybe we can all glean some supportive practices from each other, just something that's supporting you this week, and what your talking piece was, I guess I'll demonstrate and just, I read calcite. What's supporting me right now is seeing all of your beautiful faces and knowing that that you're here and that we're all here, even though we may be far away, and we're building these communities to do this work. Yeah. Thank you.
I don't think I went first on any of these. Well, I don't remember. This is just a little kind of hanging watch. I hang on my belt loop. Timepiece. And thanks for inviting me to this. And that's something that does support me then. And there's a lot of people who invite me to do things, and I can constantly be lost in thinking like, oh, just a certain lack of self-confidence or self-doubt is teaming. And meanwhile, these like really wonderful people are like inviting me to share like these spaces and do these things with them. And I want to simultaneously appreciate that and also myself for I don't know. So thanks. Yeah, I'm a little tired. I don't know how coherent I was here, but thanks for having me.
My talking piece was the closest thing to me. It's a button that says celebrate life. The reason why I bring myself to do any of these things that aren't, it's a little bit of a Zoom calls. I didn't do it all during the pandemic, so but my taking away, I'm just so grateful that there's folks doing these things. I have a book club that I love, but I feel so different. The things that I notice in the books are all very different than, but I appreciate the exposure there too. That's it for me. It's just a big thank you for holding the space.
My talking piece is an amethyst that I got from another witch who was moving. And so I am super duper new to the world of crystals. So I'm mostly just kind of bringing different crystals into different spaces and seeing what I notice. Trying to keep an open mind. Like in terms of something that's been supportive, it has been like learning about more of like kind of the witchy practices. So doing research into the different herbs, learning about kind of what, what are the things that I'm calling in and what are the practices that can support me in that. And it's been really beneficial for some really troubling stuff that's happening in the world, and then just the like everything that is just living a life. So yeah. And thank you so much for asking me to be a part of this, Ray. Your circles have meant a lot to me, and I hope that this helps other people understand why circle is so important.
My talking piece is one of my many stuffed dragons that I have scattered about my desk here and on shelves on the wall. As Ray and Mitch know, a lot of the energy work I do is around dragon energy. That's one of those kind of weird things that I have had in the past trouble talking to people about. As I continue to bring that energy to more circles and more different groups of people and find that it's accepted more often than not, that helps with the confidence around those things. So that has been supportive. And a thank you to Ray, Mitch. Thank you for inviting me for this. It's been great being in circle with both of you. It's been great spending time at Sanctuary. I am very glad that I found this community. So thank you. And thank you to everybody that came tonight. Everybody's perspectives and opinions, stories are very interesting. Thank you.
Well, I've had my talking pumpkin. Every time I pick it up, it makes me think of the Smashing Pumpkins, which I'm kind of like listening to again out of nowhere. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, one thing that I like is just carrying me through every day, is the remembrance of like being able to go out and communicate with human beings and how important that is. And that there was a time not that long ago where we couldn't do that, and what a profound experience that was. So one of the cards that I kind of drew and kind of like thought on and meditated on a few days ago was connection. And it's carrying me through is connection through this community, and grateful for the people that show up here and for all of your faces and the connection that we have in this, and the connection just in general, and that we are all human, and that like one of the most important things is to be able to connect with one another and have conversation on the daily and ponder what it's like to have weird, funny, frustrating, all kinds of things, conversations with our human counterparts, and how blessed we are because we can do that every day.
Oh, thank you all so much. Can we unmute and have a goodbye? And I know some of you haven't even met, and we're not body contacting, but can we hug? Folks feel the need to hug and just say goodbye, good night, hear our voices.
Good
Bye
night.
bye.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
It was great.
Good to
Thank you.
virtually meet you.
Yes.
Oof.